Fish, as you were writing about today, I mean, Foakes, he played 9 out of 12, I think, under Stokes McCullum. He's averaged 38.9 with the bat, so pretty respectable. But he was left out, as Miller's mentioned there, in Multan. And I think at the end of the series, or end of the winter, McCullum was asked about Bairstow coming back in, and they said they wouldn't sort of try and shoehorn him into an opener position, for instance, which kind of left only one other option.
Yeah. Foakes was asked this quite bluntly at Surrey's media day, probably too bluntly, because the journalist who asked him the question, he started the press conference with this and got it a bit wrong, but basically said, how have you found it filling in for Jonny Bairstow? Which obviously isn't true, but Foakes took it with good enough grace that I wondered, maybe, you know what he means. You know what you could just kick back at the question, as hilarious a way as that would be to start off a press conference.
Lovely man though, Ben Foakes.
Yeah, absolutely. But evidently he knew what he meant. Just hearing the word Bairstow said about put the situation in his head that he had to address, and I thought he addressed it quite well. He said he had to ignore the noise. He had to basically control what he can control and let the selectors make the decision, and they have. And the thing. Throughout his career, ever since he started in 2018, ironically because Bairstow broke his ankle when he came in Sri Lanka. When he came
rolled his ankle, didn't he?
He ended up playing the last test and he was scoring 100 Bairstow. Rolled his ankle. He played.
Johnny heals quickly, but
he then played in 2021 to give people a rest, essentially during the Ed Smith's rest and rotation policy during COVID. And he's always been someone who, whenever they use the phrase, he's done everything asked of him, what has usually been asked of him is just to fill in, really. And the thing that I think he can possibly take away after he's dealt with the blow of missing out is that he's stepping aside for, as Miller said, someone who did absurd things last summer, like things that you can't ignore, things that, have him coming back at the first opportunity now that he's fit. But, yeah, I mean, you have to feel for Foakes. I don't think anyone, even if you're pro Bairstow, wouldn't have any sympathy for Foakes. And at the same time, the thing I worry about to a point is that in any other situation, you'd celebrate the fact that Bairstow is back in this team, that Bairstow will be playing again this summer for the England Test side. And yet, it already feels like the circumstances are slightly different now. Last summer, it was very much like, yes, this is the Jonny Bairstow that we were told about. Yeah, how good is it to see him with a smile on his face? And now you're almost waiting for the Twitter blow up from that first drop, that first miss-stumping, that first, maybe, it's a first dismissal. Folks would have played that situation a bit more sensibly. And, that's the only thing I worry about. But, Bairstow back in that environment with Stokes and McCullum, who know exactly how he ticks, knows how to make him feel comfortable. I think that aspect of it will be fine, but I mean, it was a difficult situation, and credit to the selectors, they made it at the first port of call.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.